Part 20. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 191. Zuyun, don't push people too hard. Gaobi was shocked. He never expected that Zuyun would take action so decisively. Didn't you just say it well? Seeing the crisis coming, when the pillar of fire was about to engulf him, Gaobi quickly took back his hand on his waist and faced the pillar of fire again. Suddenly, a ray of light burst out from his hand, and the pillar of fire blocked it and rushed towards Zuyun instead. Fortunately, I have a talisman, otherwise I would have been burned to death by you. Now let me give you a taste of the power of my magic. The Liwo spell driven by pure fire spiritual power is terrifyingly powerful, and Guzi finally pulled out his trump card. And this trump card can actually reflect spells. Seeing Zuyun being swallowed up by Li Huo, Gaobi quickly shouted to Zhao Kamang, who was not far away, "Hurry up and hit the formation, just 2 times will be enough." He could clearly see the offense and defense between Zuyun and Gaobi. But frightened by Zuyun's whip, Zhao Kamang finally held back and did not move. "You've got a damn human intelligence now, why are you still as brainless as a demon? I've restored your intelligence." Guzi yelled. Since Zhao Kamang didn't come to help, he had to rely on himself. He dug into his waist again, took out a small hammer, and struck the barrier with one blow. With each knock, he shouted, 80. 80. 80. As for the big formation, under the blow of this small hammer, several cracks appeared out of thin air. At the same time, 2 of the remaining 6 full suns hanging high in the air disappeared without a trace. My formation-breaking hammer is worth 8,000 spirit stones, and it can only be struck 100 times. What a huge loss! The dog knocked on the nose and said with great distress. It would be a pity if the knocking was gone. At this time, Zuyun's voice sounded from behind Gaobi. "Isn't it?" The dog's nose was so focused that he didn't even hear who said it for a while. Just when he was about to hit the hammer again, he found a cold feeling coming from his neck. He was suddenly startled. The hammer he was holding could no longer fall down. "How come you weren't burned to death by your own fire?" Dog Nose finally came to his senses and asked in shock. Zuyun chuckled, and put the sword in his right hand on Gaobi's shoulder. The cold light on the blade continued to stimulate the blood vessels and nerves in his neck. Then he snatched his hammer away with his left hand. "It can actually destroy my formation. This is a good thing. It would be a pity if it was destroyed by you." Zuyun weighed the small hammer and thought it was good, so he stuffed it directly into his storage bag. "Give me back the formation-breaking hammer." Dog Nose turned around and was about to snatch it back, but halfway through, it stopped forcibly. Because if he turned halfway, he would be wiping his own neck. "You robber! Bandit!" The dog's nose turned red and his face felt extremely aggrieved. "Then you said?" Zuyun paused for a moment, deliberately showing a hint of murderous intent, and said in a deep voice, "Do I want to kill people and silence them? No, no, no. I'll give you the hammer, please let me out, please." After hearing Zuyun's words, Gaobi immediately begged for mercy. "Put." Zuyun said calmly, "Why did the thing you just used reflect my flames back? If you gave that thing to me and explained its function, you might as well consider it. He must understand that this method is not common in the Peeper realm. If it is common, then you should be more careful if you encounter it in the future." In case of a life and death fight, the Chaos Palm was used, but the force of the palm was rebounded by the backhand. Isn't this just a slap to death? This is just a talisman that can deflect spell attacks below the nascent soul stage. I'm giving it to you. I've given it to you. Can you let me go? The tone of the dog's nose changed, and his nose kept twitching. But this time, I wasn't smelling anything, but I was so distressed that I was about to cry. The formation-breaking hammer has limited effects, and it was bought with spirit stones, so that's okay. But that talisman is extremely rare. Even if you have spiritual stones, you may not be able to buy them. Moreover, the same goes for the formation-breaking hammer, use it once and less once. He escaped all the way from Peeper Realm and has only used it twice now. Zuyun was overjoyed when he heard that the spell attack could rebound the pill-forming stage. This is a good thing. But the talisman? He had never heard of it. Is it a talisman or a magic weapon? What is a talisman? Zuyun just asked if he didn't understand. Besides, in this situation, how dare he answer dishonestly? The talisman is a specially refined magic weapon with a limited number of uses. It is more powerful and more effective than the magic weapon refined with the same materials. The price is that after the number of times is used up, the talisman will be gone. Zuyun asked, then your formation-breaking hammer is also a talisman? Yes, yes. But the effect of the formation-breaking hammer is limited, and it has something to do with the realm of the person who set up the formation, the level of the formation, and the realm of the user. If someone with a high level set up this formation, I guess I will use the formation-breaking hammer. It can't be broken even if it's smashed. Hearing this, Zuyun sneered in his heart, who made you lower your level? If you were at a higher level, wouldn't you be able to knock down a few less hammers? Okay, now give me your talisman. Zuyun said unceremoniously. Gaobi reluctantly handed over the talisman with his backhand. With his back to Zuyun, he could only use this weird posture. Zuyun took it and saw that the talisman had a strange shape, like a miniature talisman. It was so thin that it could reflect his Luo spell. My fire-living curse is driven by pure gold spiritual power, but it is not much weaker than the real person in the early stage of pill formation. Fortunately, I am very proficient in controlling spiritual power, and I am also very proficient in controlling the Luo curse, and I have an extra mind, otherwise I would really have shot myself in the foot. After playing with the talisman in his hand for a while, Zuyun also stuffed it into his storage bag. Guza then said with a sad face, fellow Taoist Zuyun, you can let me go now. Let's go. I still have a question. Zuyun put a little force on the hilt of the sword, pressing the dog's nose and staggering, how do you know my name? Except in front of people he knows, he always uses the pseudonym Yunzu. When I found her, she shouted. Gaobi quickly explained, and at the same time, he carefully pointed his finger at Menguia, fearing that he would move too much, causing Zuyun to swing his sword and chop off his hand. Menguia. Zuyun looked back and saw that Menguia was still standing where he was before, saying nothing. Seeing Zuyun looking at him, Menguia said, at that time, I saw Zhao Kamang coming on the mountain. I thought it was you sitting on his back, so I shouted to Ergu that you were coming to pick us up. Upon hearing this, Zuyun's eyes lit up and he said, are you with Ergu? Menguia nodded quickly and said, after we suddenly appeared, two people from the Wangxian sect were forcing all the qi refining monks to surrender to them. I was riding on the horse and was about to run away, and they wanted to attack me. It was Ergu who saved me. And we ran away together. Is Ergu okay? Zuyun asked subconsciously. Because every time he is separated from Ergu, this kid seems to get hurt? Menguia said helplessly, he forced a palm strike with the female cultivator from Wangxian sect, but he was slightly injured. Fortunately, he is no longer seriously injured. Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that Menguia would not lie to him, so he turned his head back. Before he could speak, he heard the dog nose yelling again, fellow Taoist Zuyun, let me tell you, I didn't mean it, I know your name. Seeing him so panicked, Zuyun was secretly amused, but still did not take back the sword. This old guy is from the Peeper realm, so he can't be let go so easily. Just like Ye Xianming, now that he has broken his face, he will no longer hold back. Who knows if he has any helpers from the People realm? Now that you know my name, I'm going to kill you and silence you. Zuyun once again gathered a killing intent. Brother, don't kill me. Feeling the cold light on the sword getting a little closer to his neck, Goza was frightened again, and even his eldest brother screamed out. Brother, I am still useful. I am of great use. Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, what's the use? I can hunt for treasures. Don't you believe my nose? Look, I can smell how many women your hands have touched. Goza's words made Mengwei not far away stunned. His pretty face was quickly covered with red clouds, and the scene of Zuyun pressing on his lower abdomen in the secret realm kept reappearing in his mind. And Zuyun was even more angry. Mengwei is not around, so forget it. But if you just say it in front of her, don't I want to lose face? The murderous intention suddenly became fierce, and Gozi also understood that he had said the wrong thing in a panic, and quickly shouted, wrong, brother, I was wrong. I can help you find elixirs and treasures. Suddenly, Zuyun's figure froze, and a thought flashed through his mind, and he couldn't catch it. Gozi no longer felt Zuyun's movements, he breathed a sigh of relief, and struck again while the iron was hot, brother, take me with you to the big formation in that sea area. It is definitely the wisest choice in your life. There, but I smell something good. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 192. Good stuff? What good stuff can you smell? Zuyun withdrew his mind and stopped searching for the clueless thoughts in his mind, but in his heart, he had the idea of keeping the dog's nose for his own use. It's a spiritual fire. Moreover, it's a domineering spiritual fire, at least the grade of earth fire. After Goza said the news, his whole body immediately became soft. Spirit fire. Zuyun frowned. He already has heavenly fire. Even if there is earthly fire in the formation, can he still collect two spiritual fires by himself? Moreover, Mengwei also has spiritual fire, but he doesn't need it at this time. At this time, Zuyun suddenly felt a feeling of hunger in his mind, and he reacted instantly. This is, Fen Tianyan wants to eat it? Fen Tianyan, who had consumed 99% of his soul by Zuyun, found it extremely difficult to actively communicate with Zuyun. But after learning that there was a spiritual fire, he still forced himself to communicate with Zuyun. He began to ponder whether it was necessary to get that spiritual fire. Now he coexists with Fen Tianyan. At least for now, Fen Tianyan shouldn't be so strong that he can't control him, then it will be beneficial to him without any harm. The premise is that you can believe it if you have a dog nose. Thinking of this, Zuyun asked, how are you sure it is spiritual fire? Moreover, it may be earth fire. Seeing that Zuyun seemed to be interested, Gaobi quickly asked, brother, I come from People realm. In the sect where I was originally, many people had Dan fire, even earth fire. And the sect it's built on the earth's fire veins. Oh! Zuyun was surprised. In Yeazhu, Sun Suanhua was chased by his son all the way to Yunzhou to hide because of a pill fire. Is the People realm so rich in resources? Brother, don't believe it. The sect I belong to is a famous sect in the People realm. Such transcendental forces as Qingyun sect, Suanji sect, Haoshan sect, etc. are all very polite to our sect. When talking about these things that Zuyun didn't know about, Gaobi's eyebrows were beaming and he looked quite showy. Zuyun immediately sneered and said, sorry, I have never heard of the three sects you mentioned. Even if they are so powerful, then what is so great about your sect? Then, his expression turned to contempt, if you are really as powerful as you said, why are you living in a barren land like Yunzhou again? This. The dog's nose suddenly choked, and he wanted to scratch his head, but found that the sword was still around his neck. Don't dare to move. He could only say angrily, "Brother, my sect is called Fire Dragon Section in the entire Peeper realm, anyone who can refine pills and weapons is under our sect. Even hundreds of years ago, there was a famous person in your Yao realm. The alchemy genius has also joined the Tiandan sect. An alchemy genius from the Yao realm? Yes, Xianming." Zuyun asked. "Hey, brother, how do you know?" Dog Nose was surprised. "You don't have to worry so much." It was impossible for Zuyun to say that Ye Xianming died at his hands, so he changed the subject and said, "In that case, are you also an alchemist from the Tiandan sect? So, you want to find spiritual fire?" He contacted what Goza said before and felt that this seemed to be the case. "Well," Gaobi said with a hint of sadness in his tone, "it would be great if I were an alchemist or a weapon refiner. Why do I need to go to Yunzhou to find spiritual fire?" Zuyun felt something was wrong because he heard endless grievances from these words. The dog nose is afraid of itself. So where does this sense of grievance come from? It seems like you have a story? Come on, I have wine, tell me. Zuyun finally put the sword back and actually took out a cup of spiritual wine from the storage bag. After talking for a long time, he felt a little thirsty. Goza's eyes lit up, but he didn't dare to ask Zuyun for it. He swallowed his saliva and said, "Brother, actually I am not a human being." As soon as Zuyun drank the wine, he didn't even swallow it, but he immediately sprayed it out. Spit all over the dog's nose. "Are you scolding yourself? Speak nicely." Zuyun cursed. "Brother, I am really not a human being." Seeing that Zuyun didn't believe it, Gaobi became anxious and his voice became louder, "I'm a dog." Zuyun almost lost his grip on the wine cup. "I was originally the watchdog of the Fire Dragon sect." Dog Nose continued to make surprising remarks. Zhao Kamang, who was standing next to him, was also extremely shocked. "I am no longer a human being, but you are actually a dog. Did I listen to a dog before? Well, you're a dog. So persistent, I still believe you." Meng Wei also walked over with a stunned look on his face. Maybe he felt that he didn't hear clearly just now, so he could hear it more clearly when he got closer. "Well, I'm a dog." Goza nodded, a look of memory appeared on his face, and told his story. "I was originally just an ordinary dog. Later, by chance, I helped the Fire Dragon sect guard the mountain gate. The Fire Dragon sect fed me some elixir residue, and I was responsible for checking whether anyone had hidden elixirs or materials out of the mountain. More than 1,000 years have passed, and I have become a spiritual dog, and I have also cultivated the spiritual elixir in my body. It stands to reason that as long as I can live another 1,000 years, I can successfully cultivate and transform into a human being. Become a human race's golden elixir monk. But who knows, hundreds of years ago, Yexian stole a lot of elixirs and wanted to escape from the Fire Dragon section. I smelled the mixed potency of the medicines on him. After I warned him, he was arrested. Stand up. But who knows, they would rather believe in a person than in me, a dog. And I can't speak, so I can't tell how many kinds of elixirs he has. After being fooled by Yexian or something like that, I have a grudge." Later, not long after, he deliberately mixed a waste pill of the transformation pill into the dregs of the elixir. I didn't notice it and swallowed it directly. Immediately, the power of the medicine began to take effect. If I hadn't been strong enough to suppress it forcefully, I might have turned into a human being, and would have been mistaken for someone who had infiltrated the sect by the monks of the Fire Dragon sect, and would have been killed. So, while I could still control the power of the medicine in my body, I took the opportunity to steal some things and escaped from the Fire Dragon sect. After finding a safe place, I released the power of the medicine, and I became such a bad old man in the chi refining period. This is a blessing in misfortune, so I thought about continuing to practice, but there was no way to refine chi, and there were no resources. Being in the Peepa realm was tantamount to courting death. So I went to Yezu in the Ya realm. I found, it was easy to die there, so I fled to Yunzhou and finally settled here. But I am still afraid of causing trouble, so I have been staying in Fangxi, relying on finding people to earn spiritual stones, and plan to buy a book on how to refine qi. But there is no business. I haven't saved many spiritual stones in these years. Until one day, I helped search for people, found the sea, and smelled the scent of the spiritual fire. So, I remembered that I stole a set of magic formulas from the Fire Dragon sect. The magic formula is called the spiritual fire symbiosis technique. If I can conquer the spiritual fire, my strength will greatly increase, and my path to immortality will be broad from now on. So, I have been staying here to look for opportunities. Until I met your dragon-toothed beast, I knew that the opportunity had come. The dragon-toothed beast could take me to the edge of the formation. At this point, Zuyun interrupted, so you plan to use the formation breaking hammer to break the formation. Brother, it's like this. I've always wanted to go there secretly, but I couldn't help it, and I'm weak. Although I have some spiritual stones on my body, it's not enough. If I ask for help, I'm afraid that others will revolt after seeing the wealth, but this Jiaofen beast is different. As long as we have common interests, we can cooperate. Goza said quickly. I see. Zuyun pondered in his heart for a while and smoothed over the information. I didn't expect that the spiritual fire symbiosis technique was actually a Peepa realm technique. But this dog nose turned out to be a spiritual beast? No wonder, the sense of smell is so strong. But then again, if he is a returned dog, can I tame him and put him in the pasture to raise? As for conquering the spiritual fire, during his qi refining period, as long as he is not afraid of turning into dog meat, then go for it. After thinking for a while, Zuyun said, if you can lead me to find the spiritual fire, I can let you live and let you live well. Brother, as long as we can get inside the formation, I will definitely find it. After hearing that Zuyun's murderous intention was gone, Gaobi's body became less stooped and he beat his chest loudly. Zuyun chuckled. Naturally, he would not listen to Goza's words. He took out a porcelain bottle from his storage bag and threw it away. Since you are doing something for me, I will definitely give you some benefits. This pill can purify spiritual power and improve your realm without the need for qi refining. You can take one every day and you will be strong. The dog's nose uncorked the bottle, and a strange medicinal fragrance came out. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth twitched. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 193. Zuyun already had a long-term plan in mind. After Burning Sky Flame revealed the idea of wanting to devour the spiritual fire, he immediately thought of going to the Fire Dragon sect. Dog Nose said that almost everyone there had a spiritual fire, and the sect was built on the earth fire vein, which meant that there must be fire there that could strengthen Burning Sky Flame. He even guessed that the spiritual fires of these people were all born from the earth fire vein. Since Ye Xianming could go in, then he could both refine pills and refine weapons, so it seemed that he also had a chance. When he reached the Jindan stage, it seemed that he would go to the Fire Dragon sect to give it a try. And by that time, I believe that my control over Burning Sky Flame would be even stronger. As long as I am always stronger than him, Burning Sky Flame will always be for my use. After suppressing this plan in his heart, Zuyun looked up and saw that Gaobi didn't move, so he frowned and said, Gaobi, I gave you the pill, why don't you take it? Brother, Gaobi said with a wry smile, if I guess correctly, this is the Yugui soul pill of the Yugui demon section. If I eat it, Won't I become your puppet? Zuyun slapped his forehead and almost forgot that since he was the watchdog of the Fire Dragon sect and an old dog who had lived for thousands of years, how could he not have seen the Yugui soul pill? However, since he was exposed, Zuyun simply said straight to the point, I don't want to kill you, but I don't believe you. As long as you listen, I won't turn you into a puppet. How about it? At this point, Gaobi knew there was no way out. Gritted his teeth and swallowed a Yugui soul pill. Zuyun silently used the control method in his heart, and felt that Gaobi's mind had formed a connection with himself, and he relaxed in his heart. Unless Gaobi has the ability to kill him with one blow, otherwise, he only needs a thought to quickly turn him into a puppet. Brother, are you relieved now? Gaobi put the porcelain bottle into his storage bag with a bitter smile. Zuyun shook his head, but his eyes were on his waist. Brother, I only have a few spiritual stones here, this is all my belongings. Gaobi's face changed, and he quickly covered it with both hands. Zuyun smiled and said, You are my dog now, I will keep those things for you first. In the world of cultivating immortals, where is the word keep? Whoever has it, it belongs to him. How could Gaobi not know? But now he is a fish on the catfish board, at the mercy of others. Reluctantly disconnected the storage bag and handed it to Zuyun. Who knows, Zuyun just checked it and found that there was really only the spiritual stone in it, and the Yugui soul pill that had just been put in, so he threw the storage bag back. Go Bazai was stunned. Although he didn't have many spirit stones, he still had several hundred. In Yunzhou, it was considered a fortune. But Zuyun didn't want it? For a moment, Gaobi was dumbfounded, thinking that he couldn't understand Zuyun. What are you looking at? Can you see anything? Zuyun cursed and said, Hurry up and dissolve the drug power. Maybe you can break through to the second level of qi refining. After that, he ignored Gaobi and turned to Mengwei and asked, By the way, Ergu is with you, where are Daegu Chenhua and the others? Mengwei glanced at Gaobi who was practicing and said, Ergu told me that he went out when the exit was opened. Since they were still girls, no one would recognize them. They also said that they would wait for us in Yaluo sect. It's good that you're okay. Zuyun nodded and said, After this, let's go to Yezhu. After meeting up with them, I plan to go to Chezhu. Originally, he thought about whether to go directly to Chezhu from the sea, but since Daegu and the others were waiting for him, he could only go from Yezhu. After all, Yezhu is relatively familiar, and he has an inexplicable awe for the savage sea. Chezhu. Mengwei was startled and said, Zuyun, are you going to find Sun Suanhua? Huh? Zuyun stared and said, You said my master went to Chezhu. You don't know? Then why did you go to Chezhu? It's not a good place. Mengwei's tone was the same as what he said to Sun Suanhua at that time, It's hot, there are not many people, the ground fire is rampant, and monsters are rampant. Zuyun originally went to Chezhu just to see if he could complete the task of the nameless senior, but he never thought that there was an extra piece of news. Sun Suanhua is actually in Chezhu. That's really worth a look. His half-baked master is not very capable, but has a bad temper. Besides, the ground fire is rampant. He couldn't help but think of what Go Bazai said before, that the Fire Dragon sect was also built on the ground fire vein. Of course, the meanings of these two ground fires are not exactly the same. The underground fire in Chezhu refers to magma. However, in such a place, the chance of nurturing spiritual fire is relatively higher. I know, Zuyun laughed and said, Yejing is so big, we should go there to experience it. Otherwise, how can we reach a higher level? Zuyun, who has heard of Pipajing, knows that he can't stay in Yejing with peace of mind. There is no Yuanying stage in the entire Yejing. Isn't it the same as there is no Jindan stage in Yunzhou? The richness of spiritual energy, the amount of resources, etc. It is definitely not on the same level. If you want to cultivate to a higher realm and get closer to immortality, you can only go to a wider world. Another reason is that Zuyun still wants to look around to see if he can find other fragments of the mirror. More than once, the picture he got from Burning Sky Flame's memory appeared in his mind. The appearance of a complete mirror. Hearing Zuyun's words, Menghui suddenly fell silent and stopped talking. Zuyun was immersed in his vision of the future and did not notice Menghui's current state. You can pursue immortality, but I am not qualified, she murmured in her heart. Not long after, Go Bazai absorbed and refined the medicinal power of the entire Yugui soul pill. As expected by Zuyun, he broke through a small realm and directly reached the second level of chi refining. But Go Bazai couldn't be happy. Because he also knew that the more Yugui soul pills he ate, the easier it would be to be restricted by Zuyun in the future. This is a sharp sword hanging over his head, which may fall at any time. Brother, I'm fine. Then, should we go find that Ergu? Gao Bazai adjusted his mood and asked. After all, he is an old dog who has lived for thousands of years, so his mood is still stable. Knowing that he can't resist, he can only enjoy it. I hope that Zuyun is a man of his words. Yes, go find Ergu. But Zuyun glanced at Gao Bazai and said, since you are following me now, I can't call you Gao Bazai in the future, right? Gao Bazai pouted, and he was going to give him a name. In the Fire Dragon sect for so many years, he has been given many names. Such as Wang Ke, Lefu, Chengui. Brother, you are happy. He was numb to this. Okay, then call you Sangu. Hearing this name, Gao Bazai also regretted it a little. From the fact that Zuyun would not give himself a pseudonym, it can be seen that he is a bad namer. Menghui also laughed with a puff. Just because, I remembered that when I first met Zuyun, I teased him that he was Sango. As a result, after so many years, he gave this name to a real dog. I don't know what the Go and Ergo would think if they knew it. What are you laughing at? Zuyun blushed secretly, looked at Menghui with dissatisfaction, and then removed the spiritual power of the formation, and the 9 spiritual stones turned into powder in an instant. He casually called Zhao Kamang over, and Zuyun let Menghui sit on it first, and then sat behind Menghui. The original intention was to protect Menghui, a mortal, to prevent Sango from having the idea of a fish-to-death net and taking out his anger on Menghui. In the secret realm, Zuyun had such contact with Menghui, and at this time, he didn't think of anything wrong. As for Sango, Zuyun planned to go to the town at the foot of the Lingjian sect and buy a horse for him to ride. It's impossible for him to ride with both of them, right? As for Li Daqin and the others, Zuyun did not want to have any contact with him for the time being. Since they are willing to draw a clear line, then let them fulfill their wish. And the Taoist couple, seeing that Zuyun was safe, also returned to the sect with peace of mind. Zuyun did not stay and walked towards the foot of the Lingjian sect. However, after more than 40 miles and just 2 hours, they arrived at the small town at the foot of the mountain of the Lingjian sect. Zuyun, who came riding on a monster beast, immediately shocked a group of mortals and cultivators. The mortals were because of Zhao Kamang's dragon head. The cultivators were because Zuyun was in the foundation building period. At this time, in the distance, a horse carrying 2 women came running wildly. The speed was so fast that it was not much slower than Zhao Kamang. After rushing into the town, the horse did not stop, but jumped onto the stone steps and ran towards the mountain gate of the Lingjian sect. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 194. They were still a little far from the gate of Lingjian sect, and Zuyun couldn't see clearly, let alone Menghui. However, because of this sudden change, Zuyun thought of Zhang Tianyuan again, and thought to himself, since he was back in Yunzhou, should he go back and take a look? I just don't know if he can still enter the sect. Moreover, will the other elders say that he suddenly escaped that year? Zuyun, what's wrong? Do you want to go back and take a look? Mengwei didn't know what Zuyun was thinking, but he could guess a little. After all, this was the beginning of Zuyun's journey to immortality. If it's convenient, it's okay to go see senior brother Zhang. It's just that if those elders have ill intentions towards me, it will only cause more trouble. Zuyun shook his head, turned around and shouted to Gaobazai, Sangu, have you chosen a horse? Hurry up. Just after shouting, Gaobazai came out with a horse, smiling, brother, I've chosen. Are we going to the desolate stone mountain first? Yes. Zuyun nodded in response, and when he was about to urge him to get on the horse, he saw Gaobazai's nose tremble twice, frowning and said, strange, I smell two familiar breaths. As he spoke, he looked at Mengwei and said, sister, it's the two people I met on the desolate stone mountain. Mengwei was speechless for a while. It's okay for you to call Zuyun brother, but call me sister? Is your brain growing on your nose? But suddenly, she came back to her senses. Wasn't one of the two people on the desolate stone mountain Ergu? She couldn't help but look happy, and asked, where is the person? Where is he? Zuyun asked, is he talking about Ergu? Mengwei nodded without turning his head. Seeing this, Zuyun was also overjoyed and looked at Gaobazai. It seems, there. Gaobazai confirmed it and pointed to the direction of Lingjian sect. Suddenly, Zuyun's face changed. Ergu is only in the 9th level of Qi training. Is he going to Lingjian sect to die at this time? Who is the other person? Zuyun asked hurriedly. Just now, they were far away, so he didn't notice it. It seems to be Ergu's sister. Mengwei only remembered that when Zhou Yu asked her to hide, she asked one more question, are you my brother's Taoist partner? What? Isn't she looking for death by rushing over here? A little girl with two pigtails suddenly appeared in Zuyun's mind, and he immediately shouted in a low voice, let's go to Lingjian sect. Dog nose, you follow too. After saying that, Zuyun immediately patted Zhao Kamang and rushed towards the mountain gate of Lingjian sect. And in just such a short time, the horse had stopped at the mountain gate. The disciples guarding the mountain gate wanted to stop and warn, but seeing that the person sitting in front was Zhou Yu, the prodigy of the sect in recent years, how could they dare to make any extra moves? He hurriedly bowed and greeted, hello, senior sister Zhou. Has a child named Zhu Feng come here these days? Zhou Yu turned over and got off the horse, shouting in a delicate voice. Zhu Feng. The disciple said quickly, yes, 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 just 3 days ago, the kid came by himself, and then Elder Jin happened to be here, so he was accepted. What? Zhou Yu's face changed. If he was just accepted into the sect, there would be room for maneuver. But becoming Elder Jin's disciple. Everyone knows that Elder Jin is a rigid person. What kind of spiritual root is he? Iargo also asked anxiously. He couldn't forget everything about the Lingjian sect. It seems to be 3 spiritual roots. As he was talking, Zuyun rushed here with Mengwei and Gaobazai. Iargo, what's wrong? Zuyun was also very surprised when he saw them stop at the mountain gate. Zuyun, you are here. Iargo's face was happy, and then he said, your brother ran out of the mountain alone and joined the Lingjian sect. My brother? Zuyun frowned, but soon a child emerged in his memory, but his face was blurry. Let him out, Lingjian sect is not a good place. Zuyun glanced at the disciple guarding the mountain gate. He was a little young and he didn't know him. He should have entered the sect after he left. Senior, this is my Lingjian sect. The disciple was in awe of Zhou Yu, but although he was afraid of Zuyun, who was in the foundation building period, he still spoke with a bit of toughness. After all, the sect not only has elders and sect masters in the foundation building period, but also seniors from Wanjian Mountain. Brother Zhu. At this time, Zhou Ruyu said, Xiaofeng was accepted by Elder Jin. I'm afraid it will be a bit difficult. Are you Ruyu? Hearing this familiar name, Zhu Yun was stunned, but he also recognized it. Well, I am. Zhou Ruyu lowered his head, and Zhu Yun felt mixed emotions because of the word brother, so he didn't pay much attention. Just when he was about to urge him again, he suddenly heard a bell ring. His face changed immediately. It turned out that the disciple guarding the mountain gate rang the alarm. Although the sound of the bell was not loud, it had strong penetrating power. In an instant, several figures flew out from some of the sect's buildings and flew rapidly towards the mountain gate. What are you doing? Zhou Ruyu shouted. In the past few days, she had talked a lot with Ergu, and learned about the development of the Lingjian sect, and knew that the reason why she could practice so smoothly was not because of her talent. But it can be exchanged for cultivation resources for her master and Lingjian sect. If someone else said it, Zhou Ruyu would never believe it. But this is her own brother. Ergu also said that he was abandoned by his master and his life and death were unknown. When he was about to die, fortunately he met Menguia, and he lived to this day. After listening to her brother's experience over the years, Zhou Ruyu was shocked. When she first embarked on the immortal path, the reason was very simple, that is, to make her family's life better. But after entering the Lingjian sect, she couldn't help but hear the news of Zhu Yun and Ergu's disappearance, and immediately thought about going to find them after she succeeded in cultivation. Who knows? Entering the Lingjian sect is a path that she can't decide on. Even if she succeeds in cultivation and goes to Wanjian Mountain, she has a wider world. But the danger will become greater. Because there are countless cultivators like her in Wanjian Mountain, not to mention that Wanjian Mountain will also fight with Haori sect. Sister Zhou. The disciple looked timid, but said with a little toughness, although this person is your friend, he cannot act arrogantly in front of our Lingjian sect. While speaking, several figures have already landed at the mountain gate. Disciple, why are you here? Come back quickly. A middle-stage foundation building cultivator that Zhu Yun had never seen before shouted at Zhou Ruyu in a deep voice. The rest of the people were all looking at this strange combination. There are people, monsters, and spirit beasts. There are mortals, those in the chi refining stage, and those in the foundation building stage. Master, I want to know, are you teaching me to practice in order to exchange me for resources with Wanjian Mountain? Zhou Ruyu was still young after all, and she actually asked. Whether it was her master or the other elders, their faces tightened. This was a secret that they kept to themselves, but when it was brought to the table, how could they dare to admit it? Disciple, what are you talking about? Why don't you come here quickly? After saying that, he was about to reach out and grab it. Zhu Yun's eyes focused, and he took out his sword and slashed forward. Mid-grade spirit sword. This sword was the magic weapon that Sun Suanhua gave to Zhu Yun at that time, but it was tempered and upgraded by the burning sky flame. For these elders of the spirit sword sect, it was a rare treasure. A trace of greed flashed in their eyes. Zhou Ruyu's master also quickly withdrew his hand and looked at Zhu Yun with a bad look. A mere foundation building stage dares to attack my Lingjian sect? I'm afraid you are tired of living. Really? Zhu Yun raised his eyebrows and said, I wonder why this elder wants to arrest my sister? Did he offend the master or violate the rules of the sect? Bold. Another elder shouted, Boy, it's not your turn as an outsider to take care of the affairs of my Lingjian sect. Considering that you didn't destroy any grass or trees here, take your people and beasts and leave quickly. Zhu Yun looked over in the direction of the voice and smiled slightly, Elder Jin, I am also from the Lingjian sect. Elder Jin was stunned. You also want to join my Lingjian sect? Want to be a guest elder? He couldn't recognize Zuyun anymore. Of course, the other elders couldn't recognize Zuyun either. Originally, when Zuyun was in the Lingjian sect, he mostly stayed in the valley and rarely went out. Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui, who were relatively familiar, also died early. Not to mention that Zuyun had grown up over the years, and his figure and appearance had changed. Zuyun laughed and said, I dare not think about the position of elder. But I have been away from the sect for several years. Now that I have achieved the foundation building stage, I will come back to see all the elders. Hearing this, everyone's faces tightened. Could it be that this kid came back from Wanjian Mountain? He must not be offended. Thinking of this, Elder Jin's expression relaxed, so he is a successful disciple of my Lingjian sect. I wonder which elder you originally learned from. Zuyun said lightly, my master is, Sun Suanhua. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was silent. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 195. Sun Suanhua. You are Zuyun. For a moment, all the elders looked extremely ugly. At that time, when Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui were killed by Elder Wan one after another, Lingjian sect had encountered the biggest disaster in 100 years. These elders fought for power and the sect was in chaos with infighting. Later, when everything was consumed and they could not fight anymore, they reached a consensus and reconciled with difficulty. It was also at this time that they found that there was no one in the valley. No one made pills, made tools, and drew talismans for them. Even the spiritual medicine that had been planted in the medicine field for decades was gone. Now, they were all dumbfounded. Sun Suanhua is extremely important to Lingjian sect, otherwise they would not have forcibly imprisoned Sun Suanhua for more than 100 years. But now, it's all over. Later, they increased the exploitation of ordinary disciples under their sect, and then they breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, in order to enable the sect to quickly improve its strength again, they increased the efforts to recruit people. As long as they have spiritual roots, they will accept them. Let's talk about Zuyun. A useless disciple with 5 spiritual roots, and a disciple of Sun Suanhua. Even if they have never seen him, they have heard of his name. And now, this useless disciple is standing in front of them at the foundation building stage. The elders looked puzzled, and their minds were full of thoughts. Because they didn't know why Zuyun came back here. Until Zuyun spoke, he pulled the elders' thoughts back. It's hard for the elders to remember the disciple's name. Hearing this, they all looked at Zuyun, only to see that he had a half smile on his face. Zuyun, when the sects competed, this elder admired you very much. You are coming back to Lingjian sect today. Are you going to return home in glory? Although Elder Jin is rigid, that is only in terms of the rules of the sect. He still knows how to say good things. Now that we don't know whether Zuyun is an enemy or a friend, it's always right to say good things first. Returning home in glory is fine. Zuyun shook his head and refused, saying, since you are exchanging your disciples for cultivation resources, why don't I exchange some resources or spirit stones for 2 people? What do you think? The other party has many foundation building period, and Zuyun adheres to the principle of not fighting if he can. Of course, he is not afraid. If a fight really breaks out, Zhao Kamang can beat several of them alone. It is not a problem for him to deal with 2 people with a lower realm head-on. But he is afraid that the others will be implicated, and he doesn't know where his brother is now. Problems that can be solved with spirit stones are never a problem. Zuyun still has more than 1,000 spirit stones on him, so he is not afraid of fighting, and he is naturally confident. However, the only thing he is afraid of is that these people will be tempted by money. After all, he has seen Zhou Ruyu's master just now and the greed in everyone's eyes. Change people? What do you mean? Among the people here, only Elder Jin is familiar with Zuyun, so naturally, he became the representative to talk to Zuyun. First, I want to take Zhou Yu away. The second one is Zhu Feng. Hearing this unquestionable tone, an inappropriate voice rang out at the side. No. Zuyun narrowed his eyes and looked at them. The one who spoke was not the master of these two people, but other elders who had nothing to do with them. Zuyun thought about it for a while, and then he understood. If this matter is resolved in this way, they will not get any benefits. Of course they will object. Zuyun's face suddenly turned cold, and his hand unconsciously clenched the middle-grade spiritual sword, saying, "It's not your turn to exchange them for spiritual medicines at Wanjian Mountain, right? Zuyun, that's not what you said." In the crowd, a bird stood out. He was in the initial stage of foundation building, but he had a low-grade magic sword hanging on his waist. Looking at the eyes, it seemed to be looking directly at Zuyun, but the side of his eyes glanced at the middle-grade magic sword in his hand from time to time, and his thoughts were obvious. Zuyun sneered, "Then, what do you think? I'm talking to you nicely, what's your attitude? Do you still take us seniors and elders seriously?" Hearing such impolite words, the elder also got angry, and his tone became much higher, saying, "Our Lingjian sect is not static. It is true that we are still exchanging disciples for resources, but now half of the resources we get in exchange have to be placed in the sect's warehouse." Oh! Zuyun showed an exaggerated expression, then his eyes fixed, and said, "What does that have to do with me? Stop talking nonsense and give me a price. Don't wear out my patience. You don't know what's good for you. You are just one person, how dare you talk like this?" The elder was rejected by Zuyun, and he also shouted sternly, looking like he was about to take action, but was stopped by Elder Jin. "Zuyun," Elder Jin came out to smooth things over, "how about this? You are also in the foundation building stage now, and our realms are almost the same. Since you brought it up, then, what do you think of the price of 1,000 spirit stones?" 1,000? Zuyun raised his eyebrows. This price may not be a big deal in Yezhu, but in the Lingjian sect, it is a huge sum of money. He didn't want to be a sucker. "Elder Jin, tell me first, is this the price for one person, or two people?" Of course. Before Elder Jin opened his mouth, he heard another person interrupting, "The price for one person." Zuyun laughed and said, "This price is not low. Two people will cost 2,000. He patted Zhao Kamang beside him and said, "This Jiaya beast has the strength of the late stage of foundation building. I wonder if the elders are interested in giving it a try. The threat is self-evident." "Zuyun, what do you mean?" The elder who interrupted him looked down. "Whatever you think it means, that's what it means. It's not that easy to make me, Zuyun, a fool. One price, 1,000 for two people, otherwise, don't blame me, Zuyun, for killing 7 times. These people are the ones who have the final say in the Lingjian section. They have never been threatened like this before, and they are all furious and want to take action." Elder Jin hurriedly stopped him and said, "Okay, 1,000 is 1,000. Take the 2 away, and from now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Elder Jin, you." Seeing that Elder Jin did not ask for the price at all, the others were anxious and pointed their spears at Elder Jin. But Elder Jin was unmoved and continued to say to Zuyun, "Zhu Feng is in the Daihe Hall. You give us the spirit stones and you go find it yourself, how about it?" "Let me find it myself?" Zuyun frowned, pondered for a while, turned to the crowd and said, "You leave here first, and after 2 hours, Sangu, you take them to find me." In front of so many people, he couldn't tell the place of reunion. In order to prevent these people from being greedy and ambush them. In addition, taking them into the sect or leaving them here is not the best choice. Zuyun had to be careful. On the contrary, it would be more convenient for him to act alone. Zuyun, you are too mean. Elder Jin said dissatisfiedly. Elder Jin, you can call me mean or generous. Anyway, the deal is done, I don't care what you think of me. Zuyun watched those people walk towards the town at the foot of the mountain, then threw a bag of spirit stones to Elder Jin and walked towards the sect. Until Zuyun turned an intersection, the other elders surrounded Elder Jin with anger, wanting to ask him for an explanation. You are short-sighted. Elder Jin sneered, I am paralyzing Zuyun. What's the point of the others staying? As long as he enters our sect, isn't he a turtle in a jar? What do you mean? Someone asked. Before I came, the sect master happened to be in the Yamato Hall. We just need to besiege him there, and the spirit stones and treasures on him will all be ours, right? Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Over the years, they have lived a lot of hard times. Who knew that someone would come to the door on their own? Elder Jin is still very shrewd. Ha ha ha, fellow disciples, I am the only one using the low-grade magic sword now. I don't want anything but the middle-grade spiritual sword in his hand. I am short of spiritual stones recently. If he has any extra spiritual medicine or something, I don't want it either. Just give him more spiritual stones. This kid has cultivated to the foundation building stage with 5 spiritual roots. He must have encountered many adventures and has a lot of things on him. Don't rush to share things. Let's notify the sect master first. Elder Jin's words awakened the dreamers. One of the elders took out a piece of spiritual jade from his waist. After the spiritual power was transferred, the spiritual jade quickly lit up. Sect master, we tricked a fat sheep to go to the Yamato Hall, we will come over and kill him together later. After a while, a calm voice came from the other end of the spiritual jade. Got it? Everyone raised their heads and looked at each other. Their eyes reflected their hideous faces. Isn't it a cooked duck for someone in the early stage of foundation building to enter the depths of their sect? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 196. At this time, Zuyun did not know what these people were planning. However, after years of vigilance, he still took out the reflective talisman from the storage bag and put it in the inner pocket of his arms, just in case. This group of people looked greedy. Zuyun kept paying attention and did not feel relieved. The mountain gate was a little far away from the Great Harmony Hall. He had only walked halfway when a familiar male cultivator walked towards him. Yu Yulin. Zuyun subconsciously said hello. This was one of the few monks he knew in the Lingjian sect. I have met my senior. Yu Yulin was walking in a hurry. When he heard someone calling his name, he subconsciously looked over. Similarly, he did not recognize Zuyun Lei, but was shocked by the foundation building aura on his body, and quickly addressed him respectfully. Zuyun smiled and said, Senior brother Yu, don't you remember me? Yu Yulin was initially shocked and frightened, but when he heard such a relaxed tone and calling him senior brother, he couldn't help but feel strange, and he bravely looked at Zuyun Lei. Are you, Zuyun? Ever since the incident in Futang, Yu Yulin has been lamenting the monks in the sect and wished Yun was the most honest. But after Sun Suanhu left, there was no one to draw the talisman, and there were constant fighting within the sect, so there was no need for the talisman hall to exist. Yu Yulin also became an ordinary disciple. Senior brother Yu, you're fine. You're in such a hurry, where are you going? Zuyun said with a smile. Congratulations to, Senior, the villain. Yu Yulin was overjoyed at first, but then he thought that their identities were so different now that calling them by their first names would be extremely disrespectful. He quickly changed his words, but was interrupted by Zuyun's dissatisfaction. "Just call me Zuyun." He waved his hand and said, "We have been separated for several years now. I don't know many of my classmates in this Lingjian sect." Zuyun was not in a hurry to find Zhu Feng, but had his own plans in mind. The first is to observe how the Lingjian sect is doing now, and the second is to see if these people have arranged a backup, ambushed, or arranged for someone to follow them. He doesn't need to use his spiritual sense, he only needs the strength of his soul that is far superior to others to be able to sense it. "I'd better call you senior," Yu Yulin said with a bitter smile, "otherwise Elder Jin will find out and say that I broke the rules of the sect, and I will inevitably be punished." "How can it be so serious?" Zuyun said with a relaxed face. "I am no longer a member of the Lingjian section. You can call me whatever you want, but it won't break the sect's rules, right? As long as I don't mind, they can at most say something." The wind is sarcastic. Yu Yulin said in surprise, "Zhu Qian, Zuyun, you are now in the foundation building stage and you have returned to the section. Don't you want to be an elder?" "Who said that?" Zuyun glanced at him sideways and said, "What's the good thing about being an elder in Lingjian sect? But don't talk about me anymore. Where are you going in such a hurry?" "Well," Yu Yulin sighed and said, "isn't it for the sake of contribution to the sect? Recently, Elder Jin accepted a disciple, but he didn't have time to teach himself, so he sent me to teach. No, it's almost time to teach the chi refining technique again." "Elder Jin's apprentice? Could it be that he is his younger brother Zhu Feng, whom he has never met before?" "What's his name?" Zuyun asked immediately. Because the direction Yu Yulin went was opposite to him. But Elder Jin said that he was in the Hall of Harmony. "What a coincidence, he has the same surname as you, with the word Feng. This boy is only 8 years old. Regardless of his spiritual abilities, he has mastered the sword controlling techniques very well," Yu Yulin said with admiration. Zuyun's face suddenly darkened. "Elder Jin actually tricked me into going to the Hall of Harmony. Presumably, there is a backup plan in the Hall of Harmony." He rolled his eyes and made a decision in his heart, saying, "Senior brother Yu, my surname is very rare. Then Zhu Feng might be some of my relatives. Why don't you take me to have a look? If you really have something with me. No matter what, it wouldn't be a bad idea to give him some spiritual stones for his cultivation." When he said this, Zuyun also paid careful attention to Yu Yulin's expression. Because he is also testing Yu Yulin. "So." Yu Yulin didn't know it, but said happily, "The road to cultivating immortality is extremely bumpy, and our sect is also stretched now. It would be great if you can help me." As he spoke, he quickly lowered his voice and said, "But Zuyun, if that boy is really your relative, you have to tell him not to reveal his wealth. This boy is smart, but he is usually spoiled at home. Some are very self-righteous." Zuyun was a little surprised by Yu Yulin's reaction. Not only did he not reveal a trace of greed, but he actually reminded him to teach Zhu Feng well? Interesting. Originally, he only wanted to secretly take Zhu Feng and escape from the Lingjian sect. He is probably the only one who knows how to walk the mountain road at Mijian Cliff now. Elder Wan, who was stationed there, also died in Highly sect, and no one here may know about it. He touched his chin and said meaningfully to Yu Yulin, "Senior brother Yu, let's talk as we walk. Since the Lingjian sect doesn't have many cultivation resources, why not go outside and try it out?" After knowing that Elder Jin and others were prepared, Zuyun also put his thoughts aside and planned to leave this place as soon as possible. "How can Yu Yulin be as thoughtful as Zuyun?" he said helplessly. "Zuyun, I don't have the courage like you. I remember when I heard the news of your sudden disappearance, I thought you were dead. Now you are using the foundation building period. I am also very envious when I come back from the realm. but I heard that another force has emerged in the south. It is said that there are dozens of them in the foundation period, more than our Lingjian section. If there is a conflict, they will die. It's all in vain. Zuyun was a little surprised. He knew that that force was closely related to Haishiu. When he came out of the secret realm, he met the people there. However, he still smiled and explained, "Why do you have to go to the south? Why not go to the north? More than 100 miles to the north, there are many casual cultivators there, and there is also a ruins called Wangxian sect with rich spiritual energy." When Zuyun said this, Yu Yulin couldn't help but feel a little moved. He had never been far away from the Lingjian section. When he heard that there was a place suitable for cultivation, his eyes lit up and he said with joy, "Is it true? Then you have to find a chance to try it." He has stayed in Lingjian sect for more than 50 years and knows more about nature than others. Zuyun nodded and decided to take him out of Lingjian sect if it was convenient. As for being escorted to Wangxian sect, that's impossible. The two had friendship, but that was all. But for the sake of acquaintance, I can give you a few spiritual stones. The two of them were chatting here and there, but Zuyun looked at the side, becoming more and more familiar. "Are you actually at Confused Sword Cliff?" He was secretly happy, it saved him a lot of trouble. "Is he here?" In front of the stone tablet, Zuyun asked quickly. "Well, in a cave above, I have been teaching him how to practice in the past few days. He has mastered the sword technique, and now he is mainly learning sword steps and chi refining techniques. The road down the mountain is not something that ordinary people dare to go, especially the newly appointed Elder Wan, who is different from Wan Laojian. When he was in Lingjian sect, he had been living in the cave where Ergu and Mengwei stayed. But now, Elder Wan also died from Zuyun's sword. And Mo Xingpeng, who was traveling with him, must also be dead. Just because Li Daqin and Shivalu were polite to him doesn't mean they don't understand the principle of murder and silence. "Okay, let's go up together." Zuyun planned to make it clear to Yu Yulin after meeting Zhu Feng. In the small town at the foot of the mountain, after discussing with Mengwei, Ergu decided to stay in the town temporarily. They were still worried that something would happen to Zuyun. If there is a real fight, even if you lose, you will still go up and give it a try. However, just after they left the monster beast and the spirit horse outside, when they checked into the inn, they were stared at by two people from the Wangxian section. "Senior brother, have you seen that mortal woman and the chi refining period who fought against me?" Huang Meng said through gritted teeth. Huang Lei snorted coldly, seeming to be talking to himself. "A 7th level of chi refining, a 2nd level of chi refining, and a monster beast? Hey, we have 2 foundation building stages." His tone of voice sounded plain, but it contained murderous intent. For Huang Lei, Ergu almost ruined his plan to revive the clan. This is sworn hatred. Let's go over quietly. The monster doesn't look weak. When the time comes, I'll deal with the monster, and you'll kill them all. Listening to Huang Lei's arrangement, Huang Meng had no objection. This is simply the best decision. How dare you take action against me during a mere chi refining period? She nodded, and the two of them walked onto the street, taking advantage of the cover of the eaves of the shops on both sides, and walked towards Ergu's inn. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzwan Xianxia. Chapter 197. Ergu and the others had just squeezed into a room when Gaobi frowned. "Sangu, what did you smell again?" Mengwei asked. Zhao Kamang and Lingma were not suitable to go upstairs, so they were left outside. Gaobi pushed open the window, pointed at the two figures walking towards the side and said, "Over there, the smell of the two people, he also has it." When he said this, he was looking at Ergu. Hearing this, Mengwei also looked in the direction of Gaobi's finger, and his face suddenly changed. Ergu was surprised to see this. Several days have passed, why are they staying in this town? Gaobi saw the expressions of the two people and thought it was not good. I didn't find anything when I smelled the smell just now. But now I looked over, it was clearly two foundation building period. They are not enough to beat others with one hand. Meng Wei said, I don't know, but they seem to be heading towards us. As the two men got closer and closer, Gao Bazai became timid and was struggling whether to run away now. But he was also worried that if he ran away today, he would meet Zuyun one day, and his fate would not be so good. After all, after swallowing the Yugui soul pill, he would always have the possibility of becoming Zuyun's puppet. You want to run? On the side, Zhou keenly noticed that something was wrong with Gao Bazai. Meng Wei and Ergu turned their heads together. He, that's impossible, how could I run away? Gao Bazai denied it immediately and forced a smile. My strength was still a little lacking, and I was only at the second level of qi refining. Even if I wanted to run, I could only ride Zhao Kamang to run. The key is that Zhao Kamang would definitely not listen to me now. Thinking of this, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he hurriedly said, Ergu, miss. I have a solution. Since those two people are here to seek revenge, why not let Zhao Kamang take the initiative to attack one, then there will be only one person left. Meng Wei expressed his opinion on Gaobi calling her elder sister, and changed it to the current eldest lady. Yes, why didn't I think of it? Meng Wei said while looking at Gaobi, those two people recognized me and Ergu, and it is not convenient for us to notify Zhao Kamang. If Sister Yu has not had contact with Zhao Kamang may not believe her. So. Gaobi pointed at himself blankly, Miss, you don't want me to go down, do you? It doesn't matter if he goes down, but he is afraid that he will be affected if a fight breaks out. He is only in the second level of qi refining. It can only be this way. Ergo said in a deep voice, there is no one else but you. If you are ready, I will tell Zuyun to treat you better. This. Gao Bazai hesitated for only a moment, and weighed the pros and cons. If he escapes by himself, he will definitely not be able to escape. It is better to fight for it than to do so. Ergu encouraged him, don't worry, if there is a chance, I will also take action. Gao Bazai curled his lips, he felt that Ergu was comforting him. He is just a qi refining 9, and dares to attack the foundation establishment stage? Do you think I am a 3-year-old child? I am a 1,000-year-old dog. But he certainly didn't dare to say this, so he had to walk out of the room quickly and head downstairs. Soon, he ran to Zhao Kamang's side in a few steps and said to him urgently, did you see those two foundation establishment stages? They are here to seek revenge. You kill one first, and then find a way to kill the other one. Zhao Kamang's big eyes stared at Gao Bazai. Of course he understood, but he just wanted to distinguish the truth of what he said. To be honest, he didn't want to listen to Gao Bazai again. Last time, he almost thought he was dead because he listened to him. Why, you don't believe me, old dog? Why don't you look at the window? Gao Bazai was anxious and pointed to the window on the second floor. He could smell it without looking. Meng Wei and Ergu were standing at the window. Zhao Kamang turned his head suddenly and saw Ergu and Meng Wei nodded at him. Roar! Zhao Kamang roared at Gao Bazai and said that he knew. At this time, Huang Lei and Huang Meng were not far away from him. Gao Bazai knew that his mission was completed, and ran into the inn without saying a word. He was afraid that he would be injured by mistake later, which would be terrible. However, Zhao Kamang's roar was immediately noticed by the two people, and they stopped immediately. Senior brother, that monster. Huang Meng only felt that Zhao Kamang looked familiar. At that time in the secret realm, they only saw the process of Zhao Kamang's transformation into a demon, but did not see the whole picture. But the demon claws covered with scales seemed familiar. This should be a Jiaya beast in the sea. I don't know who subdued it as a mount. As long as he doesn't take action, we don't have to pay attention to him, so as not to cause trouble. Huang Lei took a look and just reminded him, but saw Zhao Kamang actually crouched down. He even squinted his eyes and began to doze off. Suddenly, the two of them felt relieved. But they didn't know that Zhao Kamang had human consciousness, and when he saw that the two people noticed him, he deliberately confused them. He was originally the owner of the Nanfang market and the spy of Zhuyang Genren in Yunzhou. His scheming was even deeper than that of ordinary cultivators. Although he squinted his eyes, he still left a gap to pay attention to the two people. Just as Huang Lei passed by his body, Zhao Kamang suddenly exploded. The huge demonic claws immediately clawed at his head. "Brother, be careful." Huang Meng was shocked and turned pale, and quickly used spells to blast towards the demon claws. But Zhao Kamang, who has a demonic body, chose to bear it hard at this time. Because he can also distinguish the situation, and only by killing one person can he control the victory. But, he didn't expect it at all. Huang Meng's spell was actually just enough to restrain him. Just as he crushed Huang Lei's head into pieces, Huang Meng's spell also hit his armor. Waves of dark red inexplicable power could penetrate from the tightly fitted scales and reach directly into his flesh and blood. Roar! Zhao Kamang was in great pain. He stood up on his strong hind legs and slapped Huang Meng with his other paw. "Beast, you are seeking death." Huang Meng quickly dodged. Although she was in the middle stage of foundation building, she was unable to defeat Zhao Kamang. But with her petite body, she is countless times more flexible than Zhao Kamang. And after several years of wandering in Yezhou, I have killed a lot of monks and monsters. How could she not know how to use strengths and avoid weaknesses? Erosion Curse. After dodging, she used another spell to hit Zhao Kamang's demonic claws. This spell is what she learned from Yezhou and is specially used to deal with monsters. At this time, Zhao Kamang was miserable. He never thought that he could not deal with Huang Meng. In fact, it is still weak in every aspect. But these two moves cost Huang Meng a lot. Although she was tired, Zhao Kamang, whose front paws were in severe pain, almost lost the ability to move. At most, after half a cup of tea, he would no longer be able to fight back and be at the mercy of Huang Meng. Is this going to die? In Zhao Kamang's mind, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, converging into the sentence. Second floor. Meng Wei frowned and said, "It's a bit troublesome." Zhao Kamang was actually restrained. Her eyesight is amazing, and she can see the situation in the battle at a glance. What to do? Ergu exclaimed. If Zhao Kamang died, they probably wouldn't be able to fight back. If this continues, Zhao Kamang will be unable to move. We are really going to take action. Meng Wei turned his head, looked at Ergu and said seriously. The dog's nose, which just ran up the stairs, was dumbfounded. No, they are actually thinking of taking action against the foundation building period here? We were downstairs just now. Why didn't I run? Couldn't I just run through the back door? Gozi actually felt a little regretful. Meng Wei just pondered for a moment and then said, "Three dogs, it's up to you." The hesitant Gozi almost fell down the stairs when he heard this. No, I'm only at the second level of chi refining. How can I fight here? Besides, all my things have been taken away by my eldest brother. I'm so poor that I only have spirit stones. The dog's nose shook its head repeatedly, like a rattle. You have no choice. Meng Wei also shook his head and said, if that female cultivator comes up, we will definitely die. We can only fight. After saying that, she looked at Ergu again. Is my knife still there? Ergu nodded and directly took out Meng Wei's natal magical weapon. This is a top-grade magic weapon. Gaobi finally knows where the confidence of these two people comes from. Before he could come back with surprise, Meng Wei suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Mengwea. Ergo screamed and immediately realized that the knife in his hand had become an ownerless magic weapon. Mengwea unexpectedly cut off the connection with his natal magic weapon. I am already immortal, this sword is useless to me. You quickly shed your blood to recognize the master, and then let the three dogs attract the attention of the female cultivator, and then you use the sword, to make a sneak attack. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 198. Ergo knew it was too late, now was the time to race against time. If you have anything to say, let's wait until you survive. Regardless of whether he can control a high-grade magic weapon at his own level, Ergo can't care too much. Because he chose to believe in Mengwea. Moreover, he is very familiar with this sword, and the techniques he practices are from the same sect as Mengwea. He bit his fingertip directly and forced out a drop of blood on the handle of the knife. Boom! When his mind was connected with the sword, Ergo felt as if his brain was exploding. A powerful aura immediately surged out of the blade, rushing straight into Ergo's mind. Puff! The two dogs also spit out blood instantly, splashing all over Joruyu. At the same time, the spiritual power in the body immediately surged up because of this breath. This sword is a magic weapon for the Dan-formation stage. During his chi refining period, he will be counterattacked. There was blood on the corner of Ergo's mouth and a painful expression on his face. Although only a few breaths of time had passed, it seemed like he had experienced 100 years. The pain in his soul was so painful that his facial features were almost twisted together. He almost lost consciousness, but there was always a thought in his heart. I can't die. I can't die. I can't die. I'm so sorry for you, Xiaozhu. I'm so sorry, Xiaozhu. This scene is heart-stopping. Joruyu covered her mouth and her fingers were wet. Is this the world of immortality that I strive to enter? At every turn, life and death? This is not as leisurely as I imagined. The dog's nose seemed to be shocked and shocked. He is afraid of Zuyun because Zuyun may turn him into a puppet without his own consciousness at any time. But now, Ergo's absent-minded muttering to himself gave him a new understanding of Zuyun. If nothing unexpected happens during their trip, they will go to Barren Rock Mountain to find Ergo. Goza didn't understand why Zuyun wanted to find Ergo, who was in the chi refining stage. But now, he understands. No matter Zuyun or Ergo, they are completely different from ordinary monks. Ergo, don't die. Dog Nose clenched his fists and said in his mind. Mengwei burst into tears and sobbed, Ergo, this sword, you brought it back to life. You can definitely make it recognize you as its master. In a hazy moment, Ergo heard this and felt like he was enlightened. I took you back to Yazhu. I gave you a new lease of life. It's because I have been digging mines for so many years that you have absorbed so much spiritual power. It was me who gave you the strength to suppress it again. As soon as he said this, the severe pain in his mind suddenly disappeared. Ergo also immediately discovered that someone seemed to be watching him. He opened his eyes and saw darkness all around him. What was in front of him was a huge, strange red light. Come here quickly, I'm asking you to recognize your master just to kill one person. Ergo had a feeling that this strange red light was the knife. The words fell. The red light instantly shrinks and condenses. In the blink of an eye, Dexon transformed into a knife and floated in front of Ergo. Ergo didn't hesitate, reached out and grabbed the knife in his hand. A feeling of being commanded by an arm arises spontaneously. This is, Xiaodao has recognized his master. Ergo was overjoyed, and at the same time his eyes lit up quickly, and his consciousness returned to his body. Ergo, get ready. I'm going to attract his attention now. The dog's nose didn't wait for anyone to say anything, and it rushed down the stairs. Ergo looked down at the knife, a confident smile flashed at the corner of his mouth, and then walked to the window. Ruyu, protect Mengwei. After saying that, he stared at Huang Meng intently. After all, Huang Meng was in the foundation building stage and felt something immediately, but she did not dare to relax because Zhao Kamang was still struggling to death. Although she sensed something was wrong, this demonic beast had destroyed both of its claws, but it was still able to use its demonic body to threaten her. She couldn't relax. In fact, she didn't even release her spiritual consciousness, but focused on Zhao Kamang's every move. Zhao Kamang, who knew he was going to die, was also crazy. He is also a ruthless person. Rather than just die like this, it would be better to kill another one, it's enough anyway. Because of this, the sudden appearance of the dog's nose distracted Huang Meng's mind. It's not good, it's not good. The dog's nose deliberately ran in the opposite direction, yelling while running. The bastard clan leader ran away with his sister-in-law. What kind of sect is this? How could the sect leader do such a thing? Huang Meng was stunned for a moment. He glanced at the faraway dog's nose one more time, and Ergo seized the opportunity. He gathered all his spiritual power to control the knife and fired it towards Huang Meng. Feeling a surge of power coming, Huang Meng immediately came back to his senses. When he saw it was Ergo, he couldn't help but sneered, "You're only in the chi refining period, but you dare to make a sneak attack." After saying that, she used a ray of spiritual consciousness to lock the knife, preparing to grab it and break it directly, thereby injuring Ergo. She came here just for Ergo and others, but when she saw that he dared to take action without running away, she stopped covering up her murderous intention. Naturally, she will not take the skill of the imperial weapon in the chi refining stage seriously. Under the lock of her spiritual consciousness, the knife is like a treasure in her pocket. In just the blink of an eye, Huang Meng reached out his hand and grabbed the knife. However, at this moment, a heartbreaking pain came from his hand. The ordinary knife was so sharp that she almost cut off her finger under her own force. She was shocked and quickly let go. But how could Ergo miss such a good opportunity? Even though he was controlling the knife, he suddenly sank and pierced Huang Meng's heart. With the knife already connected to his mind, Ergo knew the horror of this magical weapon. As long as a monk is stabbed, he will absorb blood essence and spiritual power like crazy. Huang Meng was horrified and quickly dodged. And Zhao Kamang, a hint of clarity suddenly flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that Ergo would help. It turns out that I am not fighting alone. Maybe, he can still survive. In the consciousness of survival, Zhao Kamang suddenly rushed over. He could recognize that this was Mengwei's natal magic weapon, and he felt it was a high-grade magic weapon before Huang Meng did. He had felt this kind of aura in Master Zhu Yang before. This is the magic weapon for the elixir formation period. Huang Mengke took a step back, and there was a gust of wind in his ears. Not good. Seeing Zhao Kamang, who was twice as big as her, rushing towards him, she became a little at a loss. Yes, she is more flexible than Zhao Kamang. But this knife, under the control of Ergo, is more flexible than her. How to maximize strengths and avoid weaknesses? In this flash of lightning, Huang Meng made a wrong decision. She chose to dodge the knife and attack Zhao Kamang with magic. Erosion Curse. This blow was thrown directly at Zhao Kamang's chest. Zhao Kamang was extremely painful, but he was huge and was hanging in the air when he jumped up. Even though this spell hurt his body, it couldn't stop him from hitting Huang Meng. Not good. Huang Meng was shocked and turned pale. When he wanted to hide again, he was unable to do so. Because of the huge consumption of the demon erosion curse, she had used two moves first, and although she had recovered some spiritual power just now, her spiritual power had almost bottomed out after using it for the third time. Not to mention avoiding Zhao Kamang, he was even unable to avoid the knife controlled by Ergo. The knife was inserted straight into her back. A strong suction force came from the knife, and she immediately felt as if a blood-sucking vortex had been placed in her body. Feeling the essence and blood flowing towards the knife edge, Huangmeng felt more and more tired. Then, Zhao Kamang's huge body pressed straight over and slammed Huangmeng into the soil. Ergu was almost exhausted and collapsed directly to the ground. After barely controlling the knife to fly back, he immediately fell into a deep sleep. Mengwei also sat down without any image. "Sister Ruyu, you, go get those two people's storage bags," she ordered. This. Zhou Ruyu's eyes widened. He killed someone and still wanted to steal their things. Is this kill for treasure? While he was in shock, a figure suddenly fell down quickly from the place where the battle had just taken place outside the house, and then there was a sound of surprise. Huh? There are actually two Foundation Establishment stage dragon-toothed beasts here who were killed by dragon-toothed beasts? I also asked, why is there so much movement at the foot of the Lingjian sect mountain? It just so happens that the dragon-toothed beasts in the sea have been a little hard to find recently, so while this one is seriously injured, let's talk about it after you've conquered it. As he spoke, there was a surge of spiritual power outside, and Zhao Kamang's wails could be heard continuously. After there was no sound, Guza came up from downstairs with a sad expression. It's over, the Jiaya beast was taken away and put into the demon control bag. Mengwei smiled bitterly and said, listening to that man's voice, it seems that he has the ability to control monsters. Miss, what should we do now? The dog's nose has completely lost its opinion. But now, Ergu is also fainted, and he can only listen to Mengwei. Mengwei sighed and said, there was a lot of movement here just now. Logically speaking, it is not suitable to stay here for a long time. And we have agreed with Zuyun to meet in 2 hours. At this time, Zhou Ruyu said, how about, we go to Barren Stone Mountain? Brother Xiao Zhu is looking for Brother Xiao Feng. If we don't go to find him, he will definitely return Brother Xiao Feng to Uncle Zhu, right? Okay, then go back to Barren Stone Mountain. Mengwei made the decision immediately. Instead of trying your luck elsewhere, it's better to go to Barren Rock Mountain. Zhou Ruyu and Gaobi walked in front, while Ergu and Mengwei rode a horse. Under this condition, their speed is not slow. At this time, Zuyun had also followed Yu Yulin and was about to find Zhu Feng. But here's the thing. After Elder Jin and others contacted the sect leader, they found that there was no sign of Zuyun at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 199. Master, didn't he come? After Elder Jin and others learned that Zuyun didn't go to the Great Hall, they no longer concealed their breath and rushed over at a faster speed. He didn't come. An old monk on the first seat opened his cloudy eyes and said impatiently, how much stuff does that person have that is worth your efforts? If Zuyun was here, he would definitely recognize that this old man was the elder of the Dan Pavilion. Whatever he is willing to take out, there will be 1,000 spirit stones. Elder Jin took out the storage bag, walked forward respectfully, and put it in front of the master's table. Then he continued, moreover, he was holding a middle-grade spiritual sword in his hand, and it looked much better than what we use. Oh! Hearing this, the sect master's eyes lit up, and he sat up straight and said, who is that cultivator? And what realm is he in? If he really has so many resources and materials, why didn't you rob him at the door? The sect master doesn't know. Elder Jin bowed his head and said, the main thing is that the situation was a little complicated at the time. Before, some things were not convenient to say through the spiritual jade. And this time, in person, Elder Jin not only told the situation, but also expressed his concerns. The sect master's brows were getting tighter and tighter. After Elder Jin finished speaking, the sect master spoke up, "You mean, he was Sun Suan Hua's disciple?" "Indeed. He said that he was Sun Suan Hua's disciple, but it's been a long time since then, so we can't recognize him. Whoever he is, now that he's here, let him go and never come back. He's just in the early stage of foundation building, and he dares to enter our Lingjian sect? He's looking for death." The sect master stood up suddenly, waved his hand, and said, "Mobilize all disciples to search in the sect. Anyone who can provide information will be rewarded with 100 contribution points. In addition, Elder Chi, you have reached the middle stage of foundation building, go to the mountain gate and guard it. If that kid breaks out, immediately warn him. Others, follow me and search separately. Lingjian sect is only this big." After giving orders, the sect master was about to get up. But Elder Jin hurriedly said, "Master, over there at Magian Cliff. Don't go to Magian Cliff. Have you forgotten how Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui died?" Suddenly, a group of people were silent. However, the master saw this and continued, "If we can't find him, we will go to Magian Cliff to meet him. The way down the mountain is not possible, but the way up the mountain is still possible." Everyone said in unison, "Yes, Master." At this time, Magian Cliff, a flat place on the way up the mountain. Just turn around a few sword stones, Zuyun and Yu Yulin can see Zhu Feng. "Zuyun, Zhu Feng is ahead," Yu Yulin said. Zuyun, who was very calm all the way, suddenly had a ripple in his heart. "Well, go over." He had been controlling himself not to ask Yu Yulin how this kid was. But now that he was about to see him, he felt inexplicably moved. If he had not practiced hard in the barren stone mountain and had to come out every once in a while, he would never have thought that his father Zurong would remarry and have children. After turning around several sword-shaped boulders, a child holding a wooden sword and dancing with sword moves caught his eye. Zhu Feng had not yet mastered the method of refining qi, and had no spiritual power in his body, so he could only use a wooden sword. "Hey, senior brother, you are here." Hearing the footsteps, Zhu Feng stopped and looked behind him. When he saw that it was Yu Yulin, he smiled and greeted him. "Yeah," Yu Yulin nodded, and when he was about to explain the situation, he heard Zhu Yun speak. "Are you Zhu Feng? Zhu Rong's son?" Zhu Feng put away his smile and said with a vigilant face, "Who are you and why do you know my father's name?" Yu Yulin hurriedly shouted, "Zhu Feng, don't be rude." Then, he quickly turned his head and apologized, "Zhu Yun, don't bother with the child." "Zhu Yun? Are you that waste?" Yu Yulin did not lower his voice and screamed. Of course he knew Zhu Yun's name, because his father often whispered in his ear. From time to time, he said that when Zhu Yun was his age, he would help with housework, while he only knew how to wield a gun and a stick. In fact, Zhu Rong didn't know that it was precisely because of this comparison that Zhu Feng had a comparison. In addition, the gold and silver left by Zhu Yun made their lives no longer need to run around frequently. The original environment of relying on each other was gone, and the sun raised would naturally be different. As for the name of waste, it was still heard by Zhu Feng from Zhou Ruyu. Of course, it wasn't that Zhou Ruyu was prejudiced against Zhu Yun, but Zhu Feng was pestering him, wanting to know Zhu Yun's news and Ling Jian's sex evaluation of Zhu Yun. That's why the brothers met at this time, and Zhu Feng blurted out without any preparation. What he couldn't accept the most was that Zhu Rong said he was not as good as Zhu Yun, even though he was a waste. Is he not even as good as a waste? "Zhu Feng, what are you talking about here?" Yu Yulin's face changed drastically. "A foundation building period, in your mouth, became a waste?" He rushed forward, covered Zhu Feng's mouth, and apologized to Zhu Yun again and again. "Zhu Yun, Senior Zhu, this kid is ignorant and outspoken, please forgive me." Zhu Yun didn't care, but felt that Zhu Feng actually called him a waste, How much resentment did he have? This was their first meeting, and it must be because his father often mentioned him in his ears. It doesn't matter. Now that I've found him, that's fine. Zhu Yun turned around calmly, turned his back to Yu Yulin and said, if you want to leave, take him with you and leave with me. Yu Yulin, who had just relaxed because of Zhu Yun's care, tensed up again. What? Leave now? What about him? Didn't you say that you came here to give Zhu Feng some cultivation resources? How could you just leave and take him with you? Brother-in-law, since Lingjian sect is not feeling well, why didn't you leave earlier? I can take you out today, but I don't know whether you can go out in the future. Zhu Yun will not force it. If Yu Yulin didn't leave, he would knock Zhu Feng unconscious and sneak out from under the misty sword cliff. Of course, he would also leave some elementary Heki pills to Yu Yulin. If you can't use these elixirs yourself, just give them to him as a thank you gift. Zhu Yun, I'm afraid that I won't be able to get out of the mountain gate. Now the sect's rules have changed. It's not that easy for someone like me to get out, unless I accept a mission from the sect. Yu Yulin was not stupid. He could tell from Zhu Yun's tone that if he didn't leave at this time, Zhu Yun would not care about him. But when he thought of the casual cultivation site that Zhu Yun told him, where he could practice freely, he felt fascinated. In the sect, there is not much time for cultivation, most of them are running back and forth doing tasks. He will also be exploited by the sect. He was like a bright mirror in his heart, all for the sake of those talented disciples. He is unwilling to accept it, but he can only accept the reality. Because he left Lingjian sect, his eyes darkened and he was nothing. If you can, take me out safely, I will go with you. Zhu Feng, whose mouth was covered, was still struggling. Yu Yulin did not relax. Zhu Feng, on the other hand, stared in horror, thinking that Zhu Yun was going to cut off his path to immortality because of his useless words. Actually, take him out of the sect? I finally ran out of home, ran to Lingjian sect, and then worshipped at the mountain gate. Since I decided to take you away, then of course I can. Zhu Yun took steps forward with a smile, and Yu Yulin quickly followed. Going all the way down the mountain road, when passing the stone monument, Yu Yulin suddenly stopped and said in a trembling voice, Zhu Yun, below, is a forbidden area. If you believe me, I'll leave. If you don't believe me, then that's it. Zhu Yun said without looking back, just stopped. Yu Yulin gritted his teeth and said, okay, I will trust you today. He remembered that Zhu Yun was an honest person. Will the person who gave me a few extra fireball talismans back then still have bad intentions? But Yu Yulin was still a little scared, so he subconsciously lowered his steps. Zhu Yun was secretly amused and said, there is no one here, so there is no need to panic. No one? Zhu Yun, the newly appointed Elder One, has been living on the road down the mountain for a long time. He has strictly prohibited anyone from going down the mountain. Yu Yulin thought he didn't know the changes in the sect over the years. Zhu Yun really didn't know, but Elder One was dead, so it was better for him to have this rule. I said, if you believe me, then follow me. Seeing what Zhu Yun said, Yu Yulin could only bite the bullet and follow him all the way to the cave. There were obvious traces of people living and cultivating, which made Yu Yulin's heart pick up in his throat. Zhu Yun. Seeing Zhu Yun walking forward without any care, Yu Yulin finally got scared. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yun smiled disdainfully and said, put the person down and go into the cave to see if there is anything suitable for you. Just take it with you. After hearing this, Yu Yulin's legs went weak and he almost knelt down. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 200. Zhu Yun sighed. But then he was relieved. Although Yu Yulin has been cultivating immortality longer than himself, He has almost always stayed in the section. This kind of character that only seeks comfort will be limited in the future. Just like him, if he didn't have the heart to pursue immortality, I'm afraid he would be just a handyman in the spirit sword sect now. Not to mention learning all the skills from Sun Suanhua, it is impossible to obtain the 5 elements of Chaos Sutra. Of course, he is able to achieve what he is today because he is brave and careful, and he dares to fight for whatever he can get. He dared to run away from anything he couldn't get. That's all. But the Yuyulan in front of him was not very courageous, and he was even more careless. If those 10,000 elders were still here, how could they let them easily reach the cave all the way? At this moment, Zhu Feng took the opportunity to break away from Yuyulan's control. He fell to the ground and cursed at Zuyun. Zuyun, what do you want to do? You are a waste. Do you still want to interrupt my path to immortality? Fortunately, my father talks about you every day. It turns out that you are afraid that if I succeed in practicing in Lingjian sect, I will beat you to the ground. Listening to the childish scolding, Zuyun laughed dumbly and said, do you know who I am? How could I not know about the rubbish of the 5 spiritual roots? Zhu Feng puffed up his chest and said with a hint of arrogance, you know, I have 3 spiritual roots. And they are the 3 spiritual roots of gold, fire, and wood that are most suitable for practicing sword control techniques. Zuyun didn't know where this kid's confidence came from, but seeing how serious he was when practicing his sword moves, he thought, among other things, that in terms of perseverance, he was indeed pretty good. Otherwise, how would an 8-year-old child still work so hard when alone? In this regard, it is somewhat similar to the original Big Dog. Only, this brain seems not flexible enough. Facing someone who is countless times stronger than you still want to die when you talk. He turned to the stunned Yuyulan and said, if there is someone inside, will they still not come out? Yuyulan also guessed Zhu Feng's identity and was in shock. After hearing Zuyun's words, he suddenly realized. Zuyun, I'll go right away. From fear to excitement, it only takes a breath. Being able to get something for nothing is a bad habit of almost everyone, especially monks like Elder Wan who are in the foundation building stage. They must have a lot of good things. Yuyulan rushed in, searched for it, and threw everything into his storage bag, regardless of whether it was useful or not. Zuyun looked at Zhu Feng, and saw that his face was full of stubbornness, and he did not avoid Zuyun's gaze at all. At this moment, a roaring sound suddenly came from the air. A golden light came from far to near, heading straight towards Lingjian sect. Zuyun's expression changed drastically. How could he not recognize that this was Wanjian Mountain's unique flying boat? At that time, after Wan Laojian's death, Wan Jianchen sent someone over, and it was Jian Shiba, who was in the Dan formation stage, to command this kind of flying boat. Not only did he teach Mu Huhui a lesson, but he also took away many of his disciples. He did not hesitate, held his breath and took the steps of the immortality secret. Without even daring to use any spiritual power, he rushed forward, held Zuyun under his arm and rushed into the cave. Yuyulan was startled by Zuyun who suddenly rushed in. Seeing his serious expression, he didn't even dare to express his anger. Is that Elder Wan back? While he was still in shock, Zuyun said in a low voice, don't make a sound, and don't move the things here. Find a chance to follow me and leave later. Yuyulan asked in a trembling voice, Zuyun. Is Elder Wan back? In his eyes, people like Elder Wan are like heavenly beings. Zuyun shook his head. Before Yuyulan's expression could calm down, he heard Zuyun say, this is the elixir formation period of Wanjian Mountain. Suddenly, Yuyulan felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The elixir formation period. While holding his breath, Zuyun didn't notice Zhu Feng under his arm, and there was a look in his eyes that shouldn't belong to his age. He was even more surprised. It had only been a few days since he killed Elder Wan, but Wan Jianshan would send someone here? Is this flying boat that fast? The flying boat rushed down, also attracting the elders who were searching for Zuyun. They didn't bother to look for Zuyun, and they all gathered towards the platform. Jian Tianming had a look of disdain on his face, and when he saw everyone, he sneered secretly in his heart. I came to destroy your sect, but I never thought you would gather together in one place. Just in time, it saves me the trouble. After the flying boat landed, before anyone could get out, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply. The leader of the Spirit Sword sect, together with all the elders of his sect, have met the seniors of Wanjian Mountain. Seeing that she was a young girl who was only at the peak of the late stage of foundation building, everyone felt strange, but they did not dare to ask any more questions. This level is enough to kill any of them with just one hand. Not to mention that Wan Jianshan's sword moves are exquisite and incomparable to them. Are all those in the foundation building stage here? Jian Tianming is as cold as ice. Every time he speaks a word, the air becomes a little colder. Everyone is here. The sect leader reluctantly spoke. It wasn't because of the excessive temperature, but Jian Tianming's tone that made them realize something was wrong. Well done. Jian Tianming raised his hand, and the ice blue sword suddenly flew out. It spun away rapidly and cut off the sect leader's head in an instant. When everyone reacted, the sect leader's head was hit dozens of steps away like a ball. And there was not even a drop of blood from the wound on his empty neck. Because it was frozen by the extreme low temperature. Senior, why? Elder Jin asked loudly. He has stayed in the sect for more than 100 years and has seen the Danjing stage of Wanjian Mountain several times. Although he is arrogant, he has never been unreasonable. Even if Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui were killed at that time, it was only because Wan Laojin was dead that they were accidentally killed. Like them, although they were slightly implicated, at least they survived. Today, it was a person in the foundation building stage who was killed without any warning. Elder Jin, why do you think so? In Sun Qinyang's memory, there was Elder Jin's appearance, so Jian Tianming naturally recognized him. However, Jian Tianming came with the goal of destroying the entire clan. As soon as the words fell, Elder Jin's head also rose up in response, with the same death pattern. Now, all the elders knew that Jian Tianming was here to kill people, and they exploded one after another. If it's the elixir formation stage, they simply don't have the courage to resist. But in the later stages of foundation building, fight. Let the sword energy out. The rainbow penetrates the sun. Sword rises to the wind and clouds. Countless sword moves came towards Jian Tianming to greet him. You're a little skilled, you want to deal with me with this shabby sword technique. Jian Tianming dismissed it, but concentrated his mind, and countless broken ice appeared out of thin air beside him, shooting towards everyone. Swish, swish, swish. The broken ice shards hit everyone's swords, making a crisp sound continuously. Looking at the swords in the hands of these people, not only did the ice shards not melt, but they slowly condensed into one piece. It's like the long sword is frozen under the freezing sun. Not only that, everyone also looks like this sword, on their protective clothing, on their eyebrows, beards, and hair. If you don't look carefully, you will think that they are savages who just came out of the snowy mountains. It's so cold. My body is so stiff. My spiritual power is a bit insufficient. What kind of magical power is used? Why, sneeze. This is definitely ice spirit root. All the elders were horrified, and their tone of voice was even more so. As a person in the foundation building stage, when have you ever endured such a climate? And this climate is caused by humans. It's also a loss because she is in the foundation building stage. If this is the period of pill formation, they will die if they meet each other. For a moment, a word came to their minds. Escape. But now, his body is stiff and his spiritual power is unsustainable. Even though Jian Tianming doesn't have the power to kill them with a single thought, he can still kill them one by one separately. And at this time, in the cave under the misty sword cliff, Zhu Yun suddenly opened his eyes wide. Impossible, why is Jian Tianming here? If it were just her, I could break off my wrist. But, with such a level of spiritual power, even I can feel it here. She doesn't seem to have anything to do with the spirit sword section. What kind of grudge? Besides, is she here alone, or is she here with the Dan formation stage? Zhu Yun's thoughts were racing. After Sun Qiniang became Jian Tianming, there was no room for them to turn back. Moreover, Jian Tianming is extremely talented and is a single-type ice spirit root sword cultivator. As long as he breaks through the core formation stage, he will never be her opponent. If you can kill this powerful enemy, you need to kill it as soon as possible. Zhu Yun immediately made a decision in his heart, turned to Yu Yulin and said, "You keep an eye on Zhu Feng here and don't go anywhere. I'll go over and take a look." He had already planned to go and observe secretly first. If there is a period of pill formation, just turn around and run away. But if you only have Jian Tianming, then you should have a good time gesticulating. While thinking, he couldn't help but touch the talisman around his waist, holding this life-saving thing in his hand that could withstand a blow from the nascent soul stage.